Hey, good day, folks. Welcome to Answers Life. I hope everyone's having a great day today. Hopefully, you guys have a great weekend. Happy Friday to everybody. Well, for those of you that watch YouTube on a regular basis, like I do, I'm pretty sure you've seen the videos that talk about how people want to downsize, how people should downsize, how having an abundance of stuff, having a big house, nice cars don't really make you happy. And there's people that have told stories on here that had that stuff or had some of that stuff and they sold it. They got rid of it. They went from their 2,000 square foot house sitting on some acreage in some cases to an RV. They got rid of all their stuff because they claimed to have it and it didn't make them happy. And they claim that if you have that stuff, it's not going to necessarily make you happy. And I do agree with that message. However, I agree with that message. I'll just say 50%. Because, whatever items that you own, the items that you own in itself is not going to make you happy. It's not gonna make you happy. I would say when it I would say the happiness aspect comes in the context of how you go about owning these items. Like, why do you want to own, let's say, a particular type of vehicle? Why do you want to own a larger home? Why do you want to own a home that sits on a large lot? Why do you want to own a home at all? I would say the reasons and why you want to own certain items can be the I don't know how to put it, but I would say as far as stuff making you happy, I would say that could be determined by I don't even know what type of wording to use here. I'll just give you guys an example. I'm now to be honest with you people, me owning this house here makes me very happy. And yes, it does add a significant amount of joy in my life. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it does. I mean, for some of you that might sound shallow, but oh well. And I know there's a lot of other people out here that their homes make them happy. The vehicles that they own, regardless of what kind they are, might make them happy. Now, if I owned this house and I had a large mortgage attached onto this house, would I be happy? Probably not. Because now I would be slave to the lender. Therefore, I would also be slave to whoever I choose to work for. Because if I lose that job, I will be in danger of losing my house because I have a mortgage on it. If that were to be the case, fortunately for me, it isn't. So, but given that I own this house outright, I don't have any mortgage on it. I mean, yeah, I know. I gotta pay property taxes. I know. I know. I gotta do repairs. I gotta do maintenance and all that good stuff. I know. I know some of you probably. I know some of you probably already began typing about you don't really own it. You gotta pay property taxes, then you gotta pay repairs and all that crap. Yeah, I know. But paying all that is gonna be much cheaper than having to pay all that in conjunction to a mortgage or having to pay rent the way rent prices have skyrocketed anymore. Not to mention, if I was still having to pay rent, I wouldn't have the luxury of the amount of privacy that I have out here. I wouldn't have the luxury to live somewhere in the rural community. I would be back in town living in an apartment My neighbor would be the next wall over, the next floor below me, the next floor above me. My neighbors would be all around me, which I can't stand apartment living. I despise it. I did apartment living back in the day a couple of times, and I hate it. So yeah, but like for me, I believe that people can own an abundance of stuff and still be happy and genuinely still be at peace with their life. I don't believe you have to strip yourself of all your personal belongings and be a minimalist in order to be happy. I believe the reason why many people do go that route is because a lot of the stuff that they have also has a debt attached to it. Like, I mean, like for me, like I told you guys on previous videos, despite me having this house that sits on a couple of acres, I live a relatively frugal life. Believe it or not, I do. I mean, I shave my own hair. I don't go in no barber shop. I ain't visited a barber shop in shit, I would say 10 years. I just cut my shit bald. And when it comes to the vehicles I drive, I have a couple of vehicles. Both of them are older vehicles. Both the vehicles I own are 15 years of age. One's 15 years of age. One is, well, yeah, they're both around 15 years of age. And well over 100,000 miles. One of them has over 200,000 miles. And they still run like a champ. They still run A1 because I take care of them. I keep the fluids changed, and whenever something is wrong with those vehicles, I get it fixed promptly. Just keep my vehicles up. And like I said, the clothes I wear anymore, it is very rare that I buy anything brand new. Now, most of the stuff I'm wearing, I buy at Goodwill. I'll go into some of the suburbs and I'll go to their Goodwills. Because typically in the suburbs, the Goodwills are going to have slightly nicer items compared to the Goodwill stores you go to that are in the city. So that's what I do most of the time when I need new clothes. So I say all this to say that if you're wise with your resources, if you're wise with how you go about making purchases, you can have whatever the hell you want to have and still be happy. Because if you're wise with how you go about your purchases, whenever applicable, you're going to buy big ticket items such as your vehicle and in some cases even your home and pay cash. Like when it comes to your home, even if you can't pay cash, which most people can't pay cash, most people have to take out some kind of a mortgage, which is perfectly okay. Housing prices today are high, I get it. And if you're younger, you really haven't had the chance to save any money for much of anything. You're just getting started. But when you take out that mortgage, and this is no financial advice, this is just something that I'm suggesting. But if you purchase your home and you set yourself up for a 15-year mortgage, if you purchase your home at, let's say, 25, 30 years of age, by the time if you purchase your home at 30 years of age, by the time you turn 45, around my age, you'll have your house paid off. And all you'll have to worry about will be the home repairs, your property taxes, and insurance. And the money that you used to have to spend to pay your mortgage, you can take that money and fund your retirement or fund whatever business plans you have. If you want to start your own business or whatever. Or I guess if you want to do a little bit of traveling, you can take a small chunk of that money and travel a little bit and live life. And while you're living your life while you're living your best life, you can still have your stuff. Like for me, if I chose to not be a homeowner, to be quite honest, if I chose to not be a homeowner, I would be able to quit my job right this very second and do full-time van life. But I mean, I would be able to. And I would have enough money saved up to where I could live out of my van for several years and not even have to touch a time clock. However, I work because I gotta pay some bills here. Although I do not prefer to stay working a 9 to 5, I have no problem at this point working a 9 to 5 until I figure out something better. Because I choose to be a homeowner. I choose to own land. So I have no problem getting up and going to work every day until I figure out something better that I could do to earn the money that I need to make to be able to take care of myself financially. And I consider myself a fairly happy person. I really do. Y'all hear that? You got the birds chirping out here. But anyways, I consider myself a fairly happy person. So I'm a firm believer that if you want to own that big fancy home, you can. If you want to drive the fancy expensive cars, you can. And you can still be at peace with yourself while you do all that. You can still live your best life while you do all that, provided that you do all that wisely. Like I said, when I say wisely, when it comes to your car, your vehicle, don't purchase a vehicle on a payment. Always, whatever vehicle you buy, since it's a depreciating asset, always pay cash. When it comes to your home, whatever home you choose to buy, make sure that you're going to be able to afford a 15-year mortgage. Not a 30-year, but a 15. And obviously, if you pay it off, let's say in 10 years, that's even better. I mean, the average millionaire pays off their home in 10.2 years. That's a little bit of data for you, statistics data for you. So, for those of you that have done well for yourself, or you're doing well for yourself, and you have an abundance of stuff, congratulations. Don't feel like you gotta, and if for some reason you guys are unhappy, I mean, maybe getting rid of some of your stuff might help you be happier because it will free up more financial resources for you to do what you want to do. But for some of you, you might have enough money despite the amount of stuff you have to do what you want to do to make yourself happy. So for those of you that have an abundance of financial resources, you have an abundance of stuff, maybe you got a bunch of stuff that people would say you don't need, you need to let go. Whatever the case might be, please don't automatically assume that if you get rid of it all, you're going to automatically be a happier person, because you're not. You might, but then again, you might not. Now, for me, I love my house. My house brings a lot of joy in my life. It brings a lot of happiness in my life. Yes, it does. I'm not going to lie. As shallow as that might sound, that's how I feel. I mean, I put a lot of money into getting this house put together. And I spent a considerable amount of time looking for this house. So I love where I live, and yes, being outside right now, enjoying my property does bring a lot of happiness. Now my property right now looks like shit because I ain't done shit to it. I'm talking about the outside. But when it warms up a little bit, because next week we're supposed to have a cold front come in and it's supposed to be raining for a few days, I believe. So when it warms up a little bit, I'm gonna come out here and I'm gonna start doing some work out here, and I'll make videos of. I'll give you guys some footage of what I do out here in the yard. So yeah, again, as long as you purchase, as long as you purchase wisely, and you stay, preferably you stay below your means, you can have an abundance of stuff. You can have fancy and expensive items to include your cars, your mansions, your larger houses sitting on acreage and all that type of stuff. You can have all that and still live your happiest and best life. You don't have to, you don't necessarily have to be a minimalist in order to gain happiness. Now, there's a lot of people that might have to resort to minimalism to gain happiness, at least for the time being, because there's a lot of people out here, unfortunately, that they've been out here faking the funk. They've been out here impressing a bunch of people that don't give two fucks about them. And therefore, they might have to get rid of a bunch of crap in order to gain more financial resources so they can live a better life. A life that's low debt to no debt at all. Like when I was younger, back when I was living in Lewisburg, Tennessee, I purchased that house. I purchased a brand new house back in 2008, which I do got that house on this channel. I purchased a house brand new. I was the very first one to live in it. Was I happy when I lived in that house? Was I happy? I would say my happiness was short-lived. I would say for the first, for the first few months I was happy. But then after that, my happiness went away. My happiness turned to frustration due to all the crap that was falling apart in that house because the house was built like shit. My happiness turned to being tired all the time because at that time, financially, I bit a little more. I bit way more than what I was able to chew because not only did I have that brand new house, but I also had two newer cars, both of which I had to make payments on. So back in the day when I was in Tennessee, back when I was in my late 20s, I was happy at first when I had all that stuff. But after I would say about 4 or 5 months, give or take, I was no longer happy. I was tired, I was frustrated, and I was angry. And I done got to the point back then where, yeah, I chose to unload all that I chose to unload all that stuff. I filed a Chapter 7 bankruptcy and got rid of all that stuff because it got to the point where it was not bringing me any happiness in my life. Not one strand of happiness. All it was doing was keeping me in debt, keeping me having to work 70, 80 hours a week to keep up with all the payments. And that right there is an example of what, sadly, a lot of people right now are going through, which is the reason why you hear a lot of other content creators talk about how they gave up this and that and the third, and now they're a lot happier as a result. You see, those people that talk like that, most likely they were in the position that I was in back when I was in my late 20s. They had a nice house. They had a couple of nice vehicles. They ran up credit cards Always very nice clothes. That's another thing I did when I was in my 20s. When I was in my 20s, going to Goodwill and buying anything, nah, couldn't do it. Too bougie for that shit. You know what I'm saying? I was too bougie for that back in the day. Every piece of clothing in my closet was new. In fact, I was so, when it came to my clothes back in the day, I was so anal with my clothes, with my clothing collection that, I mean, looking back at that situation, I was almost like a woman. Swear to God, I was almost like a woman. Like, I would say every 6 months, I would go through my closet. Any piece of clothing that I had for over 2 years, I got rid of. I gave away to Goodwill. I mean, the piece of clothing could have been perfect. And there's been times that I gave away a shirt that had a tag on it. But because I've had it for 2 years, I gave that shit away. Didn't care. And, you know, and my shoe collection was almost, I mean, back in the day, man, my shoe collection was crazy. Again, man, it's almost like a woman's shoe collection. I had so many goddamn shoes. And I used to buy all of that brand new. And I always kept myself a credit card at all times. I kept myself a credit card at all times. Every time I go shopping for clothes, it never failed. I ran up that damn credit card. I ran it up $1,000 every time. And remind you, in the this was back in the late 2000s when $1,000 was worth a little more than what it's worth now. But I ran that bad boy up $1,000 like that, like it wasn't nothing. So back when I now and again, whenever I got all that stuff home and I hung it up in the closet, I was happy. But like I said, man, I woke up one day and the happiness that I had for having that new house, having a couple of nice cars, having a whole closet full of newer clothes and shoes, the happiness went away after a while because I found myself having to work 60, 70, even 80 hours a week. And no, I'm not exaggerating when I talk about the hours I worked. I had to work 60, 70, and 80 hours a week just to keep up with the bills. I wasn't even getting ahead. I wasn't paying my mortgage ahead. I wasn't paying ahead on none of my car payments. I wasn't paying ahead on none of my bills. I was making minimal mortgage payments on a 30-year mortgage. I was making minimal car payments on 2 vehicles. I was making minimal credit card payments. The amount of debt I had going on back in the day was crazy. The amount that I had going on was crazy. So, and that was an example of me being happy at first, but then no longer being happy. And in order for me to regain my happiness, I had to give all that up so I can regain some financial leverage, so I can work myself towards some level of financial freedom. Like when I look at my life today, I mean, I still got some work to do. I still got to put some more money in the old retirement account. And like I said, I still want to, you know, there's still changes I want to make to my life when it comes to how I make my money and stuff like that. But when I look at my life today from a financial standpoint, I'm happy. Despite this house that I recently purchased, despite me sitting on 2 acres of land, I know a lot of people might think that's a lot, which it is. Especially when especially when you're like me, you don't have no family, you're just by yourself. It is a lot, but for one, but the way I went about doing this was, I think I was smart. I mean, for those of you that have been following this channel, I told you how I bought this house. But if you're new to this channel, if you go back to my videos that I made back in November, you'll see how I went about buying this house, and you'll see some of the steps when it, you'll see some of the footage of repairs being done to this house. But for those of you that are new to the channel and this is the first video you watched on this channel, I basically bought this house real below market value through an auction, and the price on this house was low enough to where I was able to budget the proper amount of money to hire people to do the repairs that this house needed. So I bought this house well below market value. In fact, I purchased this house for less money than what a newer SUV would have cost. I mean, I'm gonna put to y'all like this. The price of a newer economy car, the price of a newer SUV, that's how much money I paid for this house sitting on 2 acres. I probably paid a little less than that. I'm just saying. So if you purchase your stuff wisely, whenever applicable, you do not use debt to purchase whenever applicable. The only time you should use debt to purchase an item is when you're purchasing your home. And even then, rather than do a 30-year mortgage, do a 15-year mortgage. And again, this is not financial advice. This is just advice I'm giving you that I believe will work for most of you. So, yeah, you do not have to give up all your stuff and be a minimalist in order to regain happiness. If that's what you think you need to do, because maybe you purchased too much and you ran your debt up to your eyeballs, then do what you gotta do, and I guess you'll do better the next time. But other than that, you don't necessarily have to become a minimalist to gain happiness and to gain inner peace. Alright folks, that's all I got for this one. Hopefully you guys got something out of the video. Hopefully I didn't offend nobody. Stay blessed. Catch you all in the next one.